BodyBags, where horror lies.
Hey guys, Roth from Georgia here with you, aka VHS82 apostrophe. It is week 541 here at BodyBags. I'm your regular Wednesday evening reviewer, and it is the beginning of a new month. And you know, as always, second weekend, we either have a label rolling or a year followed at the end of the month with our theme. Well, this second week in next week happens to be Anchor Bay, Volume 2, I think. So we'll be looking at films from Anchor Bay. And so I'm going to be getting a first-time watch. Haven't looked at it yet, but I'll be getting a first-time watch into this great, from what I hear, an absolutely awesome throwback to the 80s. And so I thought opening week, random week of this new month, I thought I would just sort of immerse myself into some classic slasher, just to kind of, you know, get things rolling for when I take a look at Lost After Dark. Yeah, Lost After Dark. With Madman, kind of a lost slasher. Yeah, this movie is directed by Joe Giannone. I think it's his only one, really, maybe. Gary Sales produced. This got an absolutely really nice arrow, but it stands on the shoulders of Vinegar Syndrome. When you go into the extras and stuff on here, which there are some good ones. The Hysteria Continues has a great commentary track on this, as well as a nice little pod on the show, deep down in their archive. You know, you roll through some, and there's a great hour-and-a-half documentary in here, as well as others, TV spots, trailers, and all that stuff. More than once, Vinegar Syndrome's label comes up. And so, you know, and these boutique labels, they often work together, and where one is sort of no plans to reissue, re-release something, another label comes in, buys up the rights, be it even temporarily, but then they also buy the rights up to the guts of the release, you know, and then hopefully add in some little bit of extras. You never know if they really tamper with the transfer. This could very well be Vinegar Syndrome's transfer, but Arrow just sort of, you know, bought up the rights from them and to give it a new release, at least under their label. And so that's the one I got. Alternative artwork, of course, if you can see it there. I prefer what I remember from the old VHS glory days. But I'll be honest, this is a movie, as I was getting into slashers as a kid growing up. And by the way, this is a 1981 film. So we're not, you know, terribly too far from Friday the 13th. We are probably, is it safe to say, at the apex of the slasher movement? Which I think well, there's two farewells to the classical period, I think, that I think of. 1987 Stage Fright, I think, is such a great farewell to the slasher moment. And obviously, it has a few other phases it will roll through right up till our moment here. But Intruder 1989, it's a great. The grocery store is great. As Scott Spiegel, and with, you know, when you got Sam Raimi in there and Ted, and it's just Bruce Campbell, just a fun movie. But 1980, this is a great movie, man, with a really neat story to it. And it probably is one of the rarely seen of the slashers. I mean, everyone goes back to the big ones, right? But this one's interesting. It is made same time The Burning. In fact, it's an interesting story. Basically, you had an actress on set for Madman, yeah, and I almost said Mad Max. There is a Max in the movie, by the way. Who they wanted Vincent Price, but it was a non-union film, and so I think that's what sort of bungled it up for them in terms of getting Vincent Price to play. And Max is sort of the guy. He's in charge of the camp, and he sort of leads the campfire telling the story of Madman Marz. And it's a great opening. But you had an actress on there who basically they're prepping for a scene shoot, and she's just like, I've read this before. And I'm like, what? Yeah, I just read this before. Apparently, she was on set with her boyfriend, who was, I think, part of the burning. Well, that caused Gary Sales, a producer, to give the other producer a call. And this is great. We were talking about this last night in our BodyBags chat. This kind of cooperation is so awesome when you see it, and you probably rarely ever see it anymore, if ever. But they sent a script over to these guys, and they very quickly realized, holy crap, we're making the same movie. We need to make some serious adjustments. And they did. And those who were putting up the money were agreeable to the changes. And so Madman sort of becomes its own little film. And even though it's sort of still, I don't know, it's still sort of influenced by the whole Cropsey legend. If you really want the Cropsey legend, go to The Burning. If you want something that's attemptively a little bit of its own, but is fully aware of The Burning. And it's just neat that they took pains to make sure that they were going to stand alone. They could have just moved forward, and basically you would have had two copycat, or you would have had two films so similar. Instead, they took the pains to change things up. And that's really sort of cool. So the movie sort of opens up in a weird way. It's got a few this is going to be spoilers. So if you don't want spoilers, go check this out. Then come back. So I'm going to just talk freely here for just a couple more minutes. But this does a few things of interest. In 1981 or 80, as they're shooting, they're making a few decisions that are really interesting. The movie sort of walks the thin line, or maybe not so thin, of being supernatural, supernatural, or the material. Has he always existed? Is he always... Well, we know at one point he did. But in terms of his legend, is he truly exist, or is he just conjured up as a result of, well, what conjures us up? And in this case, we find out in the opening moments, TP, I think, actually, is one of our main characters. And Gaylen Roth is in this, too. We know her mostly from Dawn of the Dead. But she was also in Creepshow, too. And Some Things to Tide Us Over, I think that's the segment. But she had a really short run. I guess she's a documentary maker now. The rest of the cast, the cast is pretty good. The guy who actually plays Madman Marz is really good, Paul Ehlers, and his son apparently is a screenwriter now, which is pretty cool. But I think TP starts us off with singing sort of a song alluding to the legend of this guy. But then Max will begin the traditional campfire story in order to scare all the kids. And there's not really many kids. This is one of the things that's interesting is it takes place in the fall. It's not in the summer. There are kids in the camp. How do they label them? These are special kids in the sense that, not in the sense that you think, but gifted kids. There's only a group of like 5 of them. There's like 10 or 11 counselors, which is kind of weird. But and the camp is basically adjacent. I mean, like almost literally right on top of this guy's house, where we learned he committed these atrocious murders. He killed his family. This guy just went nuts. Now, he was abusive, beat his wife, and was just absolutely horrible. Would go down to the tavern, drink till he's drunk, probably came home, just made a wreck of the house, and then one night he just snaps with the axe and just goes through the house. It's quite you get foreshadowing. You sort of get to see what he did and how the villagers grab a hold of him and ultimately hang him to exact vengeance on him for what he did. It's sort of old school, but in the morning when they go back out there, he's gone, man. Noose is broken. He's gone, man, and he's somewhere in the woods. But you also get sort of a foreshadowing as they're telling the story of the deaths that we're going to see. We don't get a lot. It's sort of, you're not really sure what you're seeing at first. Maybe these are other people who have died in the past. But no, we find out this is sort of foreshadowing. So it's some really interesting decisions here. Our final girl, Gaylen Roth, which really is our final girl, she'll die. You get the kid Richie, who during the campfire, after Max is done scaring the wits out of everyone, will do exactly what you're not supposed to do. And that is holler above a whisper. Madman Marz, his name. And in fact, they do the campfire ritual right near the house, which just seems to be more than beyond tempting fate. And Richie not only will bellow out his name, but he will throw a rock through the window. And so, of course, the guy who plays Max, I don't even know why I don't have his name on my sheet. That's insane. I got everyone else written down. I know Max, and Max is a pretty big part of this. Although, like Friday, he does leave the kids to go get supplies and stuff, and so there's sort of a similarity there. But being that it takes place in the fall, it's really cold outside. So you know, where a lot of these slasher movies that take place in the summer are filmed in the fall, and so they got to overcome the coldness and just the environment. But in this one, they're sort of allowed to reflect it, because it does take place in the fall, which is sort of kind of cool. So a few neat decisions being made. And so Richie will, when they pack up the fire and everything, take care of the fire and everything, and march off back to the camp, Richie sees, and it was one of the great moments of cinematography in this, and great work of the actor who plays Madman Marz. He's up in a tree in its silhouette. This is, if you remember, I'm pretty sure that was the VHS cover box, was him silhouetted up in the trees, and Richie's the only one who sees him, and he's sort of spellbound because he doesn't know exactly what he's seen. So he kind of stays back from the group as they head off, and they don't realize he's not there until they already get to the camp, right? So he goes following after this shadowy figure. And it's sort of weird because he'll end up inside Madman Marz's house. He'll sort of just be going around and around and around, and he never crossed paths with Madman Marz. And you have to wonder, it seems silly to think that Madman Marz doesn't even realize that he's out there. It almost seems like maybe there's some purpose or intent with letting Richie live. And now the guy who conjures this crap up, who unleashes the forces of this legend on the camp, is alive at the end. And so it just seems wrong. The final girl, and she's put up on a hook, like Texas, man. Gaylen, poor Gaylen Roth, man. Apparently she doesn't think very highly of this movie, which is a shame. Although I've heard, maybe it was on the Hysteria Continues pod, that I guess these days, if she's riding a convention circuit, she will sign articles from this movie, which, I mean, I don't know why you wouldn't anyways. I mean, regardless of your thoughts, you gotta, I mean, there are those who actually treasure this. And on this, one of the extras, you actually get to see some hardcore fans of this movie and the collections they have built just around this movie. It's pretty amazing. Pretty amazing. And so you just got and then of course there's that moment where Richie ends up down in the underground layers of Madman Marz's house, and he sees where he's been taking all the bodies, and he sees the original family that's been down there. See, they disappeared apparently when they came out and to hang Madman Marz. They probably just figured it's in the middle of the night, he's gonna hang, let's just go back to town, and when it's daylight, we'll come back, clean up the house, get the bodies out of there, the children and the mom and Marz's body. But when they come out they find a new set's broken, Madman Marz is gone, and this is weird. The family's gone, but they're downstairs in the cellar. So they must not have done a really good search. And how do you not bulldoze this place down to the ground, man, with its history? How do you just not burn it to the ground and leave a vacant lot? I just don't know how you leave something like this standing to garner the legendary status that it does. I mean, we wouldn't have a movie that we have, right, if that were the case. But when you really think about some of the things that are a little problematic when you kind of think of decisions that are being made, and this is an interesting movie. It's got one of those where one disappears, another goes after, they disappear, another one goes after, they disappear, another one goes after. Oh, there's a great shot where Gaylen Ross, man, her character, she's armed with a shotgun. She has already seen her friend, I want to say it's Betsy's character, her dead body inside of one of the cabins. And when she comes back through, she hears movement in there. It's a great, shocking moment. But Gaylen just doesn't sell it very well. The whole movie, she doesn't sell it very well. It's unfortunate. If you would have had anyone else in that role, it might have been a lot better, actually. But she sort of just sleepwalks through it. It's sort of kind of weird. It's almost kind of like her same character from Dawn of the Dead, but it's not very fitting in this movie. You need a final girl that's a final girl. Maybe she just wasn't happy with the fact that she died at the end, and so she just kind of, I don't know, sleptwalked her way through it or something. I don't know what her deal was. But there's a great shocking moment where, man, it's a reactionary moment, man. She just pulls the trigger on the shotgun and ends up shooting. Betsy apparently was still alive, had crawled to the window, and she basically shoots her face off. It's crazy. Who was it? Ellie, another girl and her boyfriend. They're out there in a tent or something, doing that, and they're in their hysteria to get out of there. They're in Betsy's truck, and I think, somebody gets there. Somebody's in there in the truck. No, it's not Betsy. It's someone else that gets killed. It's Stacy. Maybe it's Stacy. One of them's trying the truck. They're trying to hot start it from in the engine, under the hood, and Madman Marz, man, just jumps on the hood, decapitating. There's a few decapitations. They're not the greatest effects in the world, but there's some effects in here that really that work pretty well. Maybe TP when Madman hangs him from a tree, the burning of the rope into the tree is pretty effective. It's pretty cool. So I mean, it's one of those movies where normally in a movie where one person goes out, then the other, and it's sort of like, seriously, really? This one almost sort of works in how they do it. And I would say this movie works way more than it doesn't work, if that makes sense, I think. Now, it gets a lot of hate, man. It's not very fun of some in terms of the slasher moment. But I think, now, man, this movie sat on my shelf for a very, very long time, and I've pretty much ignored it. But like I said, I wanted to get in a right frame of mind for Lost After Dark next week. And so, I don't know, I thought, I might as well take a good hard look at something that I haven't seen a million times. And let me just say, my revisiting of this has been a good one. And I highly, highly, unlike a lot of people, I really do recommend this movie. This movie is fun for a lot of the reasons that I mentioned. It really is fun. So I'm going to end it there, man. Yeah, next week's going to be fun. First time watch. I cannot wait. I've heard so many good things about this. It's going to be pretty cool. So a lot of other I won't get into a lot of other really neat trivia associated with Madman. That is really sort of cool to dig into deep too. So anyways, good stuff, man. Check it out. And then next week, pay me a visit, man, when I give Lost After Dark a first time watch. Nice throwback to the 80s classical era of the slasher. As always, man, these things off with Go Bills.
This is not a dream. Not a dream.
We might be useful to